Hey Bible lovers, I'm Tim Nichols and I'm here to bring you your Nichols Worth. And during my live stream, I was asked a question. What are some of your greatest Bible translation peeves? In this video, I explain 3 of my biggest peeves when it comes to Bible translations. One of them is the elimination of the supernatural world that gets kind of lost through translation. The second one is how the divine name is handled. And then the third one is the italicizing supplied words. Check it out. My biggest pet peeve in translations is when they translate out the supernatural world and try to make it sound natural. There's a lot of places in the Bible where they translate away these supernatural entities and they don't acknowledge them as proper names, and I wish they would. I believe the Bible is a supernatural book. And if it's a supernatural book, then I believe we need to acknowledge the supernatural world from cover to cover, even in Genesis chapter 1. When you're in Genesis chapter 1 and they're talking about chaos and void and all these things, those are supernatural entities that God is essentially saying, you had nothing to do with creation. He's saying creation had nothing to do with this clash of the gods. The earth isn't here because of this warfare in heaven. The earth is here because I, a sovereign God, created it all by myself from nothing. And if you miss that in the Bible, if you miss the supernatural aspect of it, you really miss out on some big, important ideas when it comes to the Bible. I hold a Deuteronomy 32:8 worldview. Now, what's that mean? I believe that Deuteronomy 32:8 should be translated when God distributed the nations according to the number of the sons of God and not the children of Israel. I believe that the sons of God in Genesis chapter 6 are the same sons of God in Job chapter 1, and the same sons of God that are addressed throughout the Psalms that are supernatural entities. So yes, I'm one of those weirdos that does not believe Genesis chapter 6 was this lineage of kings or the lineage of Seth, and I've not always held that position. The most comfortable position is the lineage of Seth. The problem is when you get to 1 Peter, when you get to Jude, and it talks about the angels that left their original estate. And it talks about the spirits that are imprisoned because of what happened in early Genesis. I can't escape the supernatural worldview there. So I believe that the sons of God are supernatural beings. Now, are they the only sons of God? No, we're sons of God. Jesus is a son of God. But Jesus is begotten from the Father. These other sons were created. And of course, I'm a son by adoption when it comes to my salvation and by the fact that I'm a spirit being. But I become a son when I become a child of God. I believe Adam was considered a son of God because he was pre-fallen. So this is kind of getting me into some wild theological territory, but I believe Genesis chapter 6, I hold the supernatural view there. I believe that those were supernatural beings that, yes, slept with women. And yes, I believe that the Nephilim were some sort of hybrid between a supernatural being and human. And I believe that when they died, their spirits had no place to go, so they became demons. Y'all think I'm weird? So I don't think demons and fallen angels are of the same class or of the same thing. That's why I think demons need human hosts. You never hear of a principality or a spiritual force of wickedness in heavenly places possessing a person, other than Satan when it comes to Judas and the Antichrist. In the Old Testament, many times they use the word death, but it's the word mot. And Mot is like a god of death. And I think they should capitalize that word because sometimes you may be talking about the entity of death rather than the act of dying death. And I think those things need to be spelled out so that we can at least put a footnote there and let us know, hey, this could be actually addressing the entity. Also in Isaiah, it talks about fortune and destiny. And I can't remember the 2 Hebrew words that those are, but those are referring to spirits. In that they're not just referring to like random chance or whatever, but they believe that there were these demons or these evil spirits that people would sacrifice to or roll the dice to and had control of their destiny. Another massive peeve of mine is the way they handle the divine name. I especially don't like Jehovah, and I don't particularly like Yahweh. Although Yahweh is probably one of the most realistic options when it comes to how the divine name was pronounced, because the Jews, when they used the Tetragrammaton, the YHWH, the Yod-He, Vav-He, they would put the vowels for Adonai in there, the AOA, and that would make some people think that it was pronounced Yahweh or Jehovah, and that's just not the case. That was a way not to say it, not a way to say it. But we do have some ancient records that do use the term Yahweh. So I'm okayer with that one, if that's a word, more okay with that one than I am with Jehovah. But Jehovah absolutely gets on my nerves. And also, I'm a big stickler for when it's word for word to go ahead and italicize or indicate those supplied words. I know that italics usually mean emphasis in the English language, but I want to know when the translators are adding their own thoughts to the Bible, even if it's as simple as a supplied word. Let me give you an example. In the Gospel of John, when the soldiers approach Jesus and they say, "We are looking for Jesus of Nazareth," and he says, "I am," and then we see in italics, "he." And it says the soldiers fell back. Well, that addition, that's a big deal because we know that in the Gospel of John, Jesus makes multiple I am statements in relation to his divinity. And when you add the word he, which it happens several times in the Gospel of John with those supplied words, I think it takes away that he's actually saying he is the I am as well. So the Roman soldiers fall back. It's very likely that Jesus meant what he said when they said, "We're looking for Jesus of Nazareth. Are you him?" And he said, "I am." And then they fell back because of that powerful statement that he made. So those are three P's. Number one, when you're using names, even if they're of evil supernatural entities, go ahead and indicate that by capitalizing them and leaving it in the raw. Don't translate it away. Number two, how you handle divine name is a big deal for me. And then number three is italicized supplied words in word for word translations. If it's more of a dynamic translation, I understand why they don't do that, because that would be more difficult to do because they're interpreting more in those translations rather than word for word. Well, I hope you enjoyed that rant because there was a lot of wild things said in that video. But yes, I do believe in a supernatural world. I do believe that the divine name should be handled with care. And I believe that supplied words should be on display, especially in word for word translations. Also, if I could add a bonus one, is how they handle the poetry. I think poetry should be flowy and should have that old English sound. But to me, while understandability is important in poetry, I think the most important thing is that it sounds beautiful. God bless you. Keep calm. Jesus on. This is your Nicholsworth.